Hi, Reinhard here. Recently I have decided that I want to have a FPV quad with a longer flight time because with my 5-inch quad and also the 4-inch one I get around 6 to 7 minutes of flight time. This is fast cruising but no flips and rolls and this stuff. And with this flight time you don't get very far, especially if you want to climb a mountain or something like that. So I wanted a flight time of a minimum of 12 minutes, so double the time. And yeah, 15 would be even better. So I did a research in the internet, and first I was leaning towards the Camino 7 in the 1300 kV version because this is the most efficient one. And yeah, but then I also asked in the local FPV community, and they recommended me the Camino 7 frame, which has 8mm arms and this cross braces in the front and in the rear, which should give a very stiff frame. Because 7-inch quads tend to have more vibrations, but more on that topic later. And this frame is also designed and produced in Austria, so I thought I give it a try. And here it is, the Camino 7 HD with the air unit in it. And yeah, the all-up weight with this setup with the full-size GoPro Hero 8 and E-filter and the 4000 mAh lithium iron pack is about 1.16 kilograms. I didn't record a build video, but I took a few pictures. So this was the first parts arriving. Here you can see the size of a 7-inch prop, and yes, I know my hand is quite big. This is the frame finished. This frame is quite interesting because the arms are just mounted by one bolt. So the left and right arms are touching in the middle and also touching on this center sleeve. And in fact you also have to grind these arms where they touch to have the perfect fit. And this gives a very stiff frame with a minimum amount of bolts. For the flight controller I use a iFlight F722 Twink with a 50 amps ESC. And I thought that it is better on this quad that the battery cable comes from the front, so I assembled the flight controller other way around. So in beta flight I had to change the orientation, so I have to rotate it by 180 degrees around the Z axis. So the first problem I struggled with was I had these huge capacitors and I didn't find a way to package it between the ESC and the FPV camera, so I had to get a smaller one. And as you sure know, the DJI Air unit comes with this MMCX connectors, so I have to find a solution to connect my long iFlight antennas. And here you can see I already struggled because I got the wrong adapter cables, which are the straight ones, and these are colliding with this standoff, so I couldn't use this and I had to get the angled ones. Finally I got the motors. Here the motors are already attached, and this is how my kitchen table looked like for a few weeks, I guess, because I started with the frame and then I had to wait for the motors to arrive. I also had to design and print my own antenna mounts. So I have a lower one where the crossfire antenna is mounted and also the GPS module. And in the upper one I mounted the two long antennas, and above the air unit I also have this holder for the crossfire receiver. It was a bit tricky to find a solution for these adapter cables to the antennas, because they are also quite long and the props are really close to the antennas. This frame is designed to the minimum, so there is not much space between the propellers itself in the front and in the rear, and the rear ones are also very close to the antennas, but I was able to design it to fit. And this is also the first quad I have with GPS, so this is also nice. This is the first time connecting to the PC for the setup in beta flight. Here you can see the first plug-in of the LiPo battery, and luckily no smoke, no fire. And in the top of the picture you can see the original fan of my video light that I use on a designed and printed stand and this is for cooling down the air unit, because if you don't fly it gets very hot. And this is the picture when I did the first test hover in the apartment, and this was also working fine. Unfortunately I didn't record it. I also designed and printed this Gopro Mount, which has some nice features. For example, in the assembled condition I can access the battery as well as the SD card. And especially when the flight battery is not attached, I can check the exposure and change settings like ISO, shutter speed and white balance. And in the front I can see if it is recording or not, and I can see in which mode I am. And of course I can see it on the rear if I'm recording or not. So in principle there is no need to remove the GoPro from the mount. Then it was time to tune the quad, so I went to an area called Seewiesen, where I have a huge open area. I did quite a few test flights and always changed some settings in between. And then I checked the logs, and these are some of the first logs where I did a variation. And here you can see just one, but this is also horrendous. So there is a huge vibration, especially on the pitch axis. And generally I have a very high noise. So I contacted the local community again for help, and even with the help of some guys I couldn't manage to have a very good flying quad. But the second pack I want to fly, so I just flew to the mountains and back, so it was about 4.5 kilometers. And yeah, it was fine. It wasn't flying very well. I still had these vibrations, but yeah, I wanted to do it. And I also tend to fly too fast, which is not very efficient. And I also noticed after the flight that the battery was very hot. And this was all on Betaflight 4.2, where I did this so-called basement tuning and checking the logs with Speed Toolbox. Recently I upgraded the firmware to Betaflight 4.3 as it was released, and I also tried a different tune from another guy from the local community, and I went for another test flight, and already the quad was flying better, not perfect but a lot better. And I also tried using the short antennas that I also use on the 5-inch quad, and noticed that the vibrations on the pitch axis are also a bit better, so maybe in the future I just use these ones. And in terms of range or penetration or whatever, I didn't notice any difference, so maybe if I go super long range I use the long ones, and in all other cases I use these short ones. So that's it. I hope you liked this video. If so, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you very much for watching and see you in the next video. Bye. And yeah, don't forget to stay tuned for the next video because this will be an epic one.